These eco-warriors are heading into an unusual battle. The enemy, a dangerous and invasive species that is destroying the local habitat.
It's caused a pretty major problem here in Western Atlantic waters.
Leading the charge is Alex Fogg, a marine biologist and conservationist for Destin Fort Walton Beach in the Florida Panhandle. He's known as the lionfish guy around these parts.
Lionfish is such a passion to what I do in my everyday life.
Lionfish are native to the South Pacific and Indian Ocean. They were first detected along the Florida coast in the mid-1980s, more than 10,000 miles from home.
There's a lot of theories exactly how they came to be, but most likely option was that lionfish were in the aquarium trade and ended up being released by a pet owner.
Over the years, the population has multiplied and is wreaking havoc.
If you put something into the ecosystem that's not supposed to be there and they're eating the same food as some of your native species, there's competition there. Where there's grazers like your parrotfish. If lionfish are preying on parrotfish, those parrotfish are no longer keeping the reefs clean. And a lot of times the algae can overtake the reef and cause a bunch of coral death.
To make matters worse, lionfish have no predators in these western waters.
It comes down to something else besides predators to take charge and keep these fish under control, and that's us, divers.
All right, we're in neutral. Go ahead.
There may be fishermen out there that would have never really considered themselves conservationists, but this is something where they can go diving, they can go harvest a fish and help the ecosystem in the process.
They have to be careful though. Those spines along their back and sides, they're venomous.
You aren't going to die, but you may shed a tear or two.
To keep their hands safe, divers use a long spear to catch the lionfish and a contraption called a zookeeper to contain them.
It's essentially a plastic tube that allows you to put the lionfish into it and prevents the spines from poking out and potentially stinging you. You want to make sure that you're not going to get stung.
The good news, lionfish happen to taste good and have become somewhat of a delicacy in upscale restaurants along the coast, like G.W. Finn's in New Orleans, where this has become a story of eat 'em to beat 'em.
When we heard about what lionfish was starting to do to the ecosystem here, we wanted to do whatever we could to help solve the problem. And when we got our first shipment of lionfish, we were actually pleasantly surprised. For an invasive species, it's probably one of the most delicious ones I've ever tasted.
The restaurant works directly with the spear fishermen who supply their lionfish. It's good for business and good for the environment. Crucially, their methods avoid bycatch and target the enemy.
When you run a net through the water, you really never know exactly what you're pulling up. When it comes to these spear fishermen, they are only harvesting exactly the fish that we're looking for and nothing else. Sourcing is probably the most important thing we do to make sure we know who, when, where, and how all of our fish was caught.
Understanding why is important too. If the lionfish population spirals out of control, it could eat many of the species the restaurant is used to having on its menu.
Really the only way to incentivize people to get out there and eradicate these and catch as many as they can is to create a demand and a market for them. Then boom, you'll have a lot more people out there hunting for lionfish.
The goal is to control the lionfish population, not eliminate it.
So lionfish will really always be here. It's just where they're going to find their place in the ecosystem and in the food web.